I actually remembered to plug in my microphone this time. I don't know why it's such a hard thing for me to remember to do, but it is. So welcome weirdos. Welcome back to my channel. My name is EmmaAbe, and I'm really excited because today is another TBR video like I alluded to in my last video, which was also a TBR video. And this is my TBR for Nonfiction November. One last thing before we get started, and that is vote. If you're in America, our November elections for the presidency is coming up. Get on that. I learned from last year and I decided to cut down the books that I read. I don't know if you guys were following me last year, but last year I decided to read 8 books for Nonfiction November, and I'm not doing that this year because I know that November is going to be a very, very busy time for me, and I already have like all of these books that I'm reading for the Indigathon and books that I'm also going to be reading that are not included in the Indigathon, specifically for Nonfiction November. I know what a lot of like nonfiction booktubers really love to do at this time is to read exclusively nonfiction. I'm not doing that because I have at least these 2 books that I'm going to be reading for the Indigathon that are their fiction, and I want to read them, so I'm going to. But that being said, I still am going to be reading more nonfiction, and if I get through these and I have time to read other ones, I'm probably gonna pick some more of the nonfiction stuff that I have on my shelves. So any of the other books that I read in November that I want to try and read besides this one, because I need to finish the Rick Riordan books that I've dedicated myself to read for this year, so I basically need to finish Trials of Apollo. Those are like the only like fiction-y books that I'm going to be trying to read. Let's just get into the prompts. So Nonfiction November is a readathon that is hosted by Olive over at abookolive. She is an amazing creator. I will link all of her stuff down below. And I do know that it's expanding this year, so there's going to be a lot more stuff on Instagram and Twitter. I can't wait for the day where I'm not a full-time student and don't have a bunch of work that I need to get done in November, so I can participate a little bit more in Nonfiction November and in all of these readathons that I like to participate in November. But this is my TBR. We're going to see how successful I am in doing them. So there are 4 prompts. These ones they're a little bit tricky because I've also set the constraint of only reading books that like I own, and for the most part I'm following that with like the Indigathon, but there's like one that I'm not. I might just buy a copy of it and then have a copy of it, and then I'm reading all books that I own because I want to try and read mostly like books from my bookshelves. So anyway, let's get into the prompts. So the first prompt is time, and I've decided to go with this one, which is The History of the Wife by Marilyn Yalom, and I've had this book for fucking ever. I've actually like read a bit of it. I remember, I think I read all of like basically the ancient. Yeah, I read chapter 1 and I really liked it, but I just had an issue of I was in school and just other things popped up and I couldn't get to finishing this. So this is one thing that I'm really, really interested in it. I know based off of the first chapter that it's not just straight heterosexual shit. It also talks about LGBTQ stuff, which I'm really excited to read. Oh, I remember exactly how I got this book. One of my best friends and I, our parents decided to send us on this scavenger hunt all alone in downtown Chicago. So we like got on the train and like went. And it was just the 2 of us. I think we were like 15 at the time because we both were going to be going like abroad, so we needed to get practice in navigating the world alone. Yeah, and we found this bookshop, and I've actually been to this bookshop past then. I should go back again. It's kind of a hassle to get there, and I don't even know if it's open. This was like the book that I picked out to buy from that bookshop. It was really fun memory with this book. So yeah, so I've had this for 6 years and I have not read that. Wow, that makes me feel really like self-conscious. This also doesn't have an audiobook, so I'll be reading this with my eyeballs. And I'm kind of nervous because I've set a lot of books to read with my eyeballs this month. We'll see how successful. Some of them are shorter than others. I think this one is the longest. It's literally 400 pages. So we'll see. I'll try my best. So the next prompt is movement. I've decided to go with another book that also does not have an audiobook, and that would be 1858. Abraham Lincoln, Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, Ulysses S. Grant, and the War They Failed to See by Bruce Chadwick. Right now I'm reading a biography of Grant, so I think this will be a really interesting book to read after that, because it talks a lot about like Reconstruction, or at least the biography of Grant does, Reconstruction and obviously Grant. So I think this will be really interesting to see how the years leading up to before the Civil War, I really want to see exactly like how that powder keg exploded. And in that way, it's kind of like connected to movement because of that, because of the fucking Civil War. And this is, again, another book that has been on my bookshelves for forever. I think this was a gift. I don't remember. I'm sure if my mom watches this, she might yell at me. This one's really interesting. This is like, it's less than 400 pages. Oh my god, wow, I just chose ones that like, this one's 300 pages, so that's good. It's a little bit shorter. Next prompt is Buzz, and I was going back and forth. I originally thought I was going to read Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting in the Cafeteria? But then I realized that I had a better book that had a lot more buzz around it. So that's how I decided to interpret Buzz, as like the conversations. So I went with Just Mercy, a story of justice and redemption by Brian Stevenson. And I've been like avoiding reading this because I think it's going to be sad. I don't know much about it. I know it's going to deal with the injustices in the criminal justice system and racism, because I think a black innocent man goes to prison for a crime he didn't commit, hence why he's innocent, and kind of like the fight to get him free. And I've read other books like this, like Solitary. That was a really good book that was also similar to this. And this one has just caused like a lot of buzz because of like tweets that this like YA author said about this student. It's weird and kind of petty in my opinion, but that's kind of why this one was whole buzz. And I think that last year this book was huge during Nonfiction November because Olive decided to set up a last minute readathon because of all the shit that was going down. That's this one. Very last prompt is Discovery. And this one I actually picked a book that I got relatively recently, and that is The Pioneers, the heroic story of the settlers who brought the American Ideal West by David McCullough. I've read his biography of John Adams, and I really liked that. I'm very curious to see how he handles this, because some pioneers were kind of problematic. That's just, and I think this book will be really interesting to read while I'm reading like all this other like Native American literature, to kind of like compare and contrast like the ideas. But I don't know, I haven't read this. I don't know how intense like that's going to be, or how big of a part that is going to be in this book. I would be very disappointed if it is just not addressed at all. But I do think that David McCullough is a good writer, so we'll see what happens with that. I got this relatively recently. I actually got this for my birthday, because I was at a bookshop and I went to the bargain section and got like a shit ton of books. There's a whole video I did about like books I got for like my birthday on this channel, so you can go ahead and watch that, please. I'm trying to think of what else I want to say about this book. Oh, it relates to Discovery, because it's kind of like how these people discovered how to survive in like a land that they're not really used to, in a very dangerous land, because you could die so easily, and they just don't have the structural support that like a lot of the Native Americans did, and like the history and the knowledge of like how to survive in certain areas. I think it'll be interesting in that retrospect. So there you go. Those are the books. Hold them up again. 4 books. Should all flip them. Oh my god, I almost bent the freaking cover. These are the 4 books that I'm going to be reading. I'm very excited and I cannot wait. I kind of just want to like open these books now and read them, but I can't, because like we've got at least like a whole another week before I can actually start reading them, and I'm just like, but I want to read them right now. That's like my problem, is like I just want to read these books and I want to skip like the last week of October. Not that I'm not liking the books I'm reading. I am liking the books I'm reading right now. I just really, really, really want to get into like this stack. 10 books. I want to get to the 10 books that I have earmarked to read in the month of November now, because I'm impatient. I'm an impatient baby. All right, so thank you guys so much for watching. Are you guys participating in Nonfiction November? If so, what books are you reading? How do you feel about the books that I've chosen? All right, bye. Like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Goodbye.